Today we are going to read from the Treasury of Fairy Tales. And there's quite a lot of stories in here, so we're going to start with story 1, which is Cinderella. We're going to start with Cinderella today. Okay, so there's a picture of Cinderella doing all of the cleaning while her ugly sisters watch her. This is by the Grimm Brothers. Once upon a time, there was a pretty young girl who lived alone with her father, as sadly the girl's mother had died when she was just a baby. As the years passed, her father decided she needed a mother, so he got married again. And the girl was excited, for her new stepmother had 2 daughters of her own, and she looked forward to having stepsisters. But the stepmother was unkind, and the stepsisters were mean. The girl, who was a gentle, happy child, did her best to get along with them anyway. So there's Cinderella as a baby when her mum died, and there's her dad and her new stepmother and 2 stepsisters, and she's trying really hard to get along with them. Then one day the girl's stepmother said to her, "You must help to do the housework." So every day the girl got up at dawn to cook and clean and wash and sew for her stepmother and stepsisters. Soon the girl's pretty clothes were rags and tatters, and she had not been allowed any new clothes. Not long after, her stepmother said to the girl, "Since you spend so much time in the kitchen, you can sleep beside the fire." So every night, Cinderella curled up to sleep beside the fire. Soon her clothes and hair were so grey with ash and cinders. That's why everyone called her Cinderella. As you can see, her 2 stepsisters are getting away with it. They're living a great life, while her stepmom forces Cinderella to sleep by the fire. Not a very nice stepmother, hey? One morning, a messenger came to the house with a special invitation. There was to be a ball at the royal palace. All the young women in the kingdom were invited, so that the young prince could choose a bride. Cinderella's stepsisters were so excited. "We must look our best," they cried. "Cinderella, comb my hair," shouted one stepsister. "Cinderella, lace my dress," ordered the other. "Cinderella, bring my jewels. Cinderella, fetch my shoes." When they were dressed, the 2 stepsisters admired themselves in the mirror. Cinderella looked on and sighed. She wished that she could go to the ball too. As you can see, she's helping them get ready. She's tying their dresses. She's doing their hair. All the clothes are all over the room. There's the poor cat hiding with clothes being tossed all over it. As an elegant carriage took her stepsisters to the ball, Cinderella sat beside the hearth and wept. "How I wish I could go to the ball," she cried. Suddenly, a strange light filled the room. "Dry your tears, my dear," said a gentle voice. Cinderella looked up. A silvery glow surrounded a kind-looking woman with a glittering wand. "Who are you?" asked Cinderella, blinking in wonder. "I am your fairy godmother," she replied. "I have come to help you go to the ball." "But how?" asked Cinderella. "I will show you," said the fairy godmother, leading her out to the garden. So as you can see, she's watching her stepsisters go off in a horse and carriage, and there's the fairy godmother has appeared. Even the cat looks surprised to see her. "Find me a big pumpkin, 6 white mice, 6 frogs and a rat," said the fairy godmother. Cinderella found everything as quickly as she could. The fairy godmother tapped the pumpkin with her wand. Before Cinderella's eyes, the pumpkin changed into a magnificent golden coach. Next, the fairy godmother waved her wand over the 6 white mice. A shower of sparks lit the air, and suddenly Instead of mice, 6 prancing horses stood before Cinderella. "Oh!" she breathed in delight. Then with a gentle tap of her wand, the fairy godmother changed the 6 frogs into handsome footmen dressed in green velvet jackets. One more tap and the rat became a smart coachman. So you can see there's all the ingredients that Cinderella pulled together with a pumpkin. And there you go, look, she's got everything she needs to be able to go to the ball. All of her frogs have been turned into the coachmen. And she's got a coachman that's driving the coach. Cinderella was entranced, but still something was not right. "But what about my ragged clothes?" she asked. Her fairy godmother answered with a gentle tap of her wand. Instantly, Cinderella's dusty dress became a shimmering ball gown, twinkling with jewels. On her feet were 2 sparkling glass slippers. "Thank you," gasped Cinderella with delight. "Now," said her fairy godmother, "you are ready for the ball. But remember this, you must be home before midnight. At the stroke of midnight, the magic will end, and everything will change back to what it was." "I will remember," promised Cinderella as she stepped into the golden carriage. Look, as you can see, the clock is waiting. The clock is telling her how long she's got, with a little pussycat that's sleeping at the bottom of the clock. And there's Cinderella getting into the coach with her beautiful gown, being helped in there by the coachman. Wow, very exciting, huh? When Cinderella arrived at the ball, everyone turned to look at her. No one knew who Cinderella was. Even her own stepsisters didn't recognise the beautiful girl in the dazzling gown. But the prince thought that she was the loveliest, most enchanting girl he had ever seen. He never left her side and danced only with her. Before the evening was over, he was in love with her. Cinderella was falling in love with the prince too. As she whirled around the room in his arms, Cinderella felt so happy that she forgot her godmother's warning. All at once, she heard the clock chime. Once, twice, 12 times. Oh dear, look, the clock is chiming. It's turned midnight. She must hurry. There's her sisters watching on, very sad as the prince has chosen Cinderella. And they don't even recognise her because she's usually in rags, covered in cinders. "Oh," cried Cinderella, "I must go." And before the prince could stop her, she ran from the ballroom and out of the palace. "Wait," cried the prince, dashing after her. But by the time he reached the palace steps, the mysterious girl had disappeared. All he could see was a ragged kitchen maid hurrying toward the palace gates. But then he saw something twinkling on the steps. A single glass slipper. The prince picked it up. "This will help me to find her," he said. As you can see, the frogs and the mice all turned back into frogs and mice. And there's Cinders running away as the prince finds the glass slipper. You see all the magic is turning her back into cinders again. The next morning, the prince made an announcement. "I will marry the woman whose foot fits the glass slipper," he declared. "I will search the kingdom until I find her." That very day, he began going from house to house, looking for his true love. Every young woman in the kingdom tried on the glass slipper, but it didn't fit anyone. At last, the prince came to the Cinderella's house. Her stepsisters were waiting to try on the slipper. The first stepsister pushed and squeezed, but she could barely get her fat toes in the tiny slipper. The second stepsister's feet were even bigger, but she too tried to cram her foot into the dainty little shoe, but it was no use. See how Cinderella, she's back to being cinders again. And there's the stepsisters trying on the shoe, trying to make it fit, but their feet are too fat. The prince was turning to leave when a soft voice asked, "May I try the slipper, please?" As Cinderella stepped forward to try on the slipper, her stepsisters began to laugh and make fun of her. "Get back to the kitchen where you belong," ordered her stepmother. But the prince stepped forward. "Everyone should have a chance," he said gently, "even a kitchen maid. Please," he said to Cinderella, "try on the slipper." Cinderella sat down and took off her rough wooden clogs. The prince held out the sparkling slipper, and suddenly, there's the two sisters laughing, and there's the prince trying the shoe on Cinder's foot. Suddenly, dang, dang, dang. "Oh!" gasped the stepsisters. "Oh my!" choked the stepmother. For of course, Cinderella's dainty foot fitted into the slipper perfectly. As her stepsisters gazed in amazement, the prince joyfully took Cinderella in his arms. "You are my one true love," the prince said to Cinderella. "Will you be my bride?" "Yes," said Cinderella, with shining eyes. Her stepsisters and stepmother were still trembling with shock as they watched Cinderella ride off to the palace in the prince's own carriage. As you can see, look there, fallen in love. Cinder's got her prince. Cinderella and the prince were soon married, and because Cinderella was good and kind, she invited her stepsisters and stepmother to the wedding. They were very unkind again, and Cinderella and the prince lived happily ever after. There's the golden slipper, or the glass slipper, and there's them getting married with her sisters in the background looking on, not very happy. The end. There we go. So I will be back with the next story, which is The Ugly Duckling by Hans Christian Andersen. Look out for that, coming very soon. Mwah.